Hi, my name is Jay Sugarman, and I want to welcome you to Museum Open House. This ongoing series features and highlights many of the outstanding museums and other cultural institutions. The main purpose of most programs is to inform viewers about current and upcoming exhibits, various programs, resources, and other opportunities that are available for the general public. Today, via Zoom, we're fortunate to have as our guest Bob Burns. Bob serves as the executive director of the Mattatuck Museum, an art and regional history museum located on the Green in downtown Waterbury, Connecticut. During the program, we'll learn about the history and mission of the Mattatuck Museum and how it's grown, developed, and operates today. We'll go on a behind-the-scenes tour and in the process come to better understand and appreciate the wide range of exhibitions, programs, events, and other opportunities that are available for visitors today. Let's start by meeting Bob and then hearing all about the Mattatuck Museum. Welcome, Bob. So delighted you're able to be here.
Thank you, Jay. It's a pleasure to be with you today.
I have to say, until a few weeks ago, I hadn't been familiar with the Mattatuck Museum, but since I've been reading about it, seeing various things online, getting materials from you and your staff, I've come away so impressed with the incredible amount of things you offer and what you and your colleagues have done over the years to make it such a central piece in the area. So that said, eager to hear much more and have you inform viewers. But before we jump right to that, I also think it would be of interest for you to share just a little bit maybe about your background, professional interest, and what attracted you to the museum in the first place.
Well, Jay, I've, I am a classically trained actor, actually, and I worked quite a bit as a younger person in New York City. But I fell in love and I got married and settled down into a career path that I had never anticipated in fundraising for nonprofits. So I'm coming up on 40 years of raising money to help nonprofits move their missions and make their constituencies better, stronger, save lives, change lives. And so it's been a really interesting career path for me. I'm a generalist in fundraising, and I've worked for a wide variety of nonprofits, from the Ronald McDonald House of New York City to the State University of New York in New Paltz. And the job I had before this one was at Frederick Church's Olana. It's a New York State historic site in Hudson, New York, and the home of the Hudson River School artist Frederick Church. In my role there as vice president of the, we were never supposed to call it this, Friends Group, that was assisting the state, we were able to raise about $20 million to restore the house, put in a fire suppression system, and restore a lot of the artworks that are inside the house there. I kind of thought I'd be there for the rest of my career, and and many headhunters had called me over the years, and I usually just say, no, that's not going to work. Thank you, and I helped them. But this job came, and I was wondering if maybe I could actually be the director of a museum myself. And so I went and did a little research. I did a reconnaissance mission. I came here secretly and visited the museum. It was very quiet on a Sunday afternoon. I noticed in the collection that they had kind of an amazing work by Frederick Church. Who after 11 years of working at his home, I felt very confident that I knew a lot about him, but I also did not know this museum, and I also didn't know that they had an iceberg painting. And the year that I was recruited was the anniversary of the Civil War, and Church's really famous painting, The Iceberg, was being promoted at many places, but also at Olana at the time. So I was surprised to find an iceberg painting at this museum, and I thought, oh, this is a sign. I should throw my hat in the ring. And it was a long, drawn-out process. I was absolutely not at all the person they were looking for. They really wanted somebody with a PhD in art history, and that's not me. But the headhunter kept throwing me back into the pool. And by the end, it came down to me and a wonderful woman who I'm still friends with today, who has a PhD in art history. And we each had to make a presentation. Mine, of course, was on Frederick Church and Olana, and I actually don't know what she presented on, but at the end of that, they offered me the job, and I've been here now almost 13 years. It'll be 13 years this month. So it's been an interesting voyage in my life. And it's been a really amazing transition for me to come here and be a part of this really wonderful institution that, like you, I'd never heard of before. But now that I'm here, I love it. And I think we're doing really great work in our community, and it's an opportunity to just continue to do that.
Well, kudos to the staff at the museum for going through the process and ending up with what's turned out to be the incredible right choice and direction of the museum for the last 13 years. Stepping back just a second briefly, could you share a little bit about the history and the mission of the museum and take us up to date where there's been a rather recent renovation?
Yeah, so even though we keep being discovered, we've been around for 147 years.
Wow.
Yeah, so in 1877, Waterbury is an amazing city, and really, there's this sort of joke that it's the center of the universe, but it really is the center of the universe. And people who've never heard of Waterbury, they use things every day in their life that were invented or perfected in the city of Waterbury. So very important industrial city in the 18th, 19th, and early 20th century, known as the Brass City. Of course, we didn't have zinc or copper here, but they got it here and they manipulated into amazing products for many, many years. And in 1877, there were 11 gentlemen who came together. One of them was the head librarian of the Silas Bronson Library. The rest were all leaders of the brass industry businesses in and around Waterbury. They wanted to form a historical society.
Mm.
It was the 150th anniversary of the founding of the city of Waterbury. We've just celebrated the 350th anniversary of the city of
Wow.
Waterbury. And it took them a little while. It took them a few years, but eventually in 1877, they came together and formed the Mattatuck Historical Society. And for many years, this was a traveling institution that went from home to home or building to building. People would bring their own collections in and give lectures and talks. But in 1912, they found a home here on the green in Waterbury, directly across the street of where I'm sitting right now. There's the only remaining house that's on the green in Waterbury, Connecticut. It was originally built by a gentleman named Green Kendrick, who was mayor of the city, for his son. Eventually, by the time they bought it in 1912, it was owned by Mr. Leggett, who invented the cigarette vending machine. I don't know if you
Yeah.
remember those, Jay, but I do. Never used them. I was just a kid who wanted to pull the lever if my dad was buying cigarettes. So they immediately built a large addition off the back of this little Georgian house, so that they could display art. Because from the moment that they had a physical structure, they not only wanted to share the artifacts they'd been gathering for a very long time, but they also wanted to gather and display art in their city. And so they began collecting. The museum collected art and artifacts from the region, from across America. We have a really extensive collection of Native American objects, things related to the metal industry, of course. And then, lots of rare photographs and ephemera from just the time period of that 147 years. But they started with collecting art from around the world. In the 1960s, they decided that they want to
Hmm.
really focus on the state of Connecticut, which, if you're going to pick a state to focus on, it's a pretty good state to pick, because
Most
really
definitely.
good artists come from here, really great artists came here. So it's a really broad array of people. And so in 1965, they sold off most of their international holdings and several other objects from their collection in order to collect art of the artists of Connecticut. And like most institutions in the 1960s and 70s, they were collecting men, of course, who were famous names. This was a small institution with a small budget, so a lot of our early works are works on paper. But eventually we amassed a really nice collection of mostly 19th century, but some early 18th century portraiture, and some early 20th century works by, famous names from Frederick Church, to Annie and Joseph Albers, people who came to live in Connecticut and work in Connecticut. So it's a beautiful collection. There are thousands of paintings, prints, photographs in that art collection. And when I arrived 13 years ago, the board really wanted to expand that mission beyond Connecticut, because the city of Waterbury, since its inception until today, has been a city of immigrants. And we continue to grow. In fact, in the last census, Waterbury grew by 14,000 people, which did not happen in any other city in Connecticut. And
Wow.
all of those people came from either Puerto Rico or the Dominican Republic. And so, like, generation after generation, people come to Waterbury for opportunities to work in the industry that is here. Although we're not a major manufacturing company with giant factories like we had in the 19th and early 20th century, there are 288 small small manufacturers that continue to work in the metal industry in the same work that they've been doing since the 18th century,
Wow.
flattening, deburring, and plating metals. And so there are ample jobs here for skilled workers who have the math and science background to work in our small manufacturing businesses. And so people continue to come here. We have a really large Middle Eastern group of people. We have a really large group of people from Albania, and then all of those Spanish-speaking people from Central and South America, as well as Puerto Rican and Dominican Republic. So, and Cape Verde, and because Portuguese is like the fourth spoken language in the city of Waterbury. So, like, who else can say that? So, in order to try and represent the diversity of our community, we've expanded our exhibition and our collecting program to include people from all around the world who may or may not have had some connection to the state of Connecticut. Yes, we are filling in those holes from the earlier part of the collection when there were women and artists of color who were working at the same exact time as those famous men that I mentioned before. And whenever we can, we're trying to add them to our 19th and 20th century collections, but we're also collecting contemporary artists from all around the world who more represent who we are as a city today than ever before.
Picking up on that from reading, so impressed with the wide range of continually new exhibitions throughout the year. How do you and other staff members decide on themes or artists to feature?
Yeah, so Jay, when I showed up here, as I mentioned, it was a little quiet. It wasn't just that Sunday of my reconnaissance mission. It was every day for the first several months. When I came here, they told me that there had been 40,000 visitors in the prior year. And I was like, I don't know how that's possible because I'm literally counting the people who are walking in the door. So we realized early on that the thing that brings people to our museum is changing exhibitions. And the more often they change and the more interesting and diverse they are, the bigger the audience that we attract. Once we get them in the building and they go into our history exhibit, they are blown away by the history of the city of Waterbury. But it's the rare person that comes here first for the history. I've worked with now two curators since I've come here, and what we try to do is have a really interesting mix of things that will resonate with a lot of different people. So boldface names, as you know, work really well. So every few years we do an Andy Warhol exhibition, or this year we're really lucky because 13 years ago when I was being interviewed by a local reporter here before I showed up, she said, "So what's your dream for the future, Bob Burns?" And I was like, well, this might be, not in the near term, but at some point, I really hope that there'll be a Gordon Parks or a George O'Keeffe exhibition at the Mattatuck Museum. And this year we have both.
Yeah.
So those are boldface names. And you can only do that so often. They're expensive, their insurance, all that sort of thing. So that's every few years, there's a big name that we pull out. Every once in a while, we get help from our good friends at the Art Bridges Foundation, and we can do more than that. And I'll talk more about them later. But when trying to figure out what we're doing, we want to maintain our connection to our community. So we do a lot of exhibitions that are very specific to our community. We have a very large African-American population, so Gordon Parks fit really perfectly in that. And we also have an Elizabeth Catlett show coming up this year, later this year, another really important African-American artist from the 20th century, probably the most important woman artist from America of that period, coming to this museum, because that population, our African-American population, they moved here during the Great Migration to go work in the tobacco fields of Connecticut. There was no jobs for them in the tobacco fields of Connecticut. So they made their way to Waterbury to work in our factories. And so this is a long history of African Americans in the city of Waterbury. And this museum has really been working closely with them for many, many years to make a difference. Because we have that large Spanish-speaking population, we also try and do shows that are focused on Puerto Rico, the Dominican Republic, the Hispanic experience in America. We did a show 2 years ago about Chicano art in California. And there is a Mexican population in Waterbury as well. So it really is looking at that. And then finally, we want to also continue to connect to our community artists. And so each year we do our juried art show, which is artists from throughout New England, New York, and New Jersey. Predominantly, Connecticut gets a lot more share of that than anywhere else. Interestingly enough, except for 1 year so far of the 10 years we've been doing this, the Connecticut artist has won the solo show that is the first prize of that exhibition. And so the gentleman who won this year who'll be coming back later in the fall, is a Waterbury native now living in Ridgefield. But it's the first time we've had a Waterbury native who's going to get a solo show as a part of that. So
Yeah.
that's sort of the plan. And then the other part is that we're always open to opportunity. And so when some amazing opportunity comes in over the transom, we jump on it to try and bring that to our audience as well. So we remain flexible, and yet we have a pretty good plan about what it is that we like to show.
Well, just in the last few comments, hearing the honor you give to the different groups in the region, can you share a little bit about how that partnership might work, a specific program or two that stand out that exemplify that type of collaboration?
Yeah, so we historically have worked very closely with two large Waterbury groups, the African American group and the Jewish group, the Jewish immigrants here in Waterbury. And I arrived at near the end of the Jewish American History Project, which was a 10-year project to basically map out the experience of Jewish immigrants in the city of Waterbury. And the very first synagogue ever built in Waterbury does not exist anymore, but is a part of the parking lot behind the museum. So we have a plaque there as well. And we've gathered a lot of information, and we've worked really closely with the Jewish Federation, which is now located in Southbury, to create sort of a permanent installation there of the work that committee has done with us. And then we do changing exhibits every few years in our history exhibit, bringing back the information that has been gathered about the Jewish community here in Waterbury. Similarly, with the African American History Project, we did a very intense oral history project where we gathered all the oral histories of every African American from Waterbury who was 75 years or older. That's now all been digitized and it's available on our website. And then out of that grew two different projects: a short film that was created where we did video histories with some of those people from the oral histories, and then a play was written about that, which now gets performed every few years. One of the culminating events out of that was the museum collection had, since the 1940s until I arrived here, the human remains of a slave. We don't know where he was born, but he did live and raise a family here in Waterbury, was the property of a important Waterbury family, a proprietor, if you will, one of the founding members of Waterbury. His name was Fortune, and we did a very extensive multi-year project to learn as much as we possibly could about the history of him. And then ultimately we buried him, which was a lovely, wonderful experience. And just this past year, a group of people in our community came together to create a mural about Mr. Fortune that's been painted on the back of the North Side Recreation Center, which is a block away from here, right in the heart of our community. So the work that we do with that committee just continues each year to sort of grow and continue to tell that story. The thing about being a history institution, excuse me, is it's really important to retell that history over and over again, because unfortunately, there's always a new audience for the history that you've told. And teaching people about that history helps them not to repeat that history and gives them an opportunity to expand their understanding about you, the community they're in, the relationships that you have. So these are stories that we are pulling out and telling over and over and over again.
I know you also give a lot of attention and careful thought to collaborating with schools and families. Could you share a few highlights from those type of involvement?
Absolutely. I'll just throw a couple of statistics at you. We are incredible partners with the City of Waterbury Public Schools, and they have been extremely supportive, as much as the public school system can be in a challenged, diverse city like our own. But as a partner of the City of Waterbury Public Schools, we see every third, fourth, and fifth grader in the Waterbury Public School System, which is around 5,000 to 6,000 students a year. It's growing. It was declining, but it's growing again because we have new immigrants that are moving here and taking advantage of the public school system. So they have school tours that tell them about the history of Waterbury, and because it's cumulative over third, fourth, and fifth grade, the story remains pretty much the same, but their experience of understanding and gathering that knowledge continues as they grow. We incorporate whatever contemporary art is happening in the museum as a part of that as well, so that they have an understanding of the experience of visiting an art museum, experiencing art, talking about it, utilizing critical thinking strategies, because it has been shown that kids who are creative and use critical thinking are better students. And so this is an opportunity for kids who are fairly disadvantaged because of the size of our population and our school system, getting an opportunity, a little leg up if they can by being a part of here. We also do after school programs in the schools and at the museum here in the city of Waterbury and for the city of Danbury, Bristol, and Ansonia. And so pretty extensive outreach into our local community. And we also do a program called the Boost program in some Waterbury schools that's through the United Way. So we have a pretty in-depth, and our entire education staff is 3.5 people. So it's kind of
Wow.
amazing how much we can do with so few people. But oh, and here's one more example. We have a charter school here called the Children's Community School that's grown over the 13 years that I've been here. It started out as K through third grade. They're now K through high school finally. And we are their sole provider of art classes and have been since
Mm.
the
Ooh.
inception. So once a week, our education director or one of his staff is there doing an art project that lasts, 2 or 3 hours, 3 times a week in that school. And the class has grown up with the museum over these years. So it's been a really wonderful experience for us that way as well. Can't remember the other part of your
And
question.
then I know throughout the year there are a number of special family events.
Yes, absolutely. So I mentioned the Art Bridges Foundation, which is an organization that was created in 2017 by Alice Walton, who was a member of the Walton family that founded Walmart. And
Mm.
she created a museum that you may have heard of called the Crystal Bridges Museum, which if you've never been, Jay, I highly recommend. It's kind of amazing
Yeah.
experience. But when she was done with that project, which I don't know how you're ever done with a museum project, they go on forever. But when she passed the reins on to another family member and was looking for something else to do, she decided that one of the things that she'd learned about creating a museum was that larger institutions all over the country have enormous storeholds of artwork that is just in storage and never seen by anyone. And
Mm.
small regional museums like us have a dearth of that kind of work to share with their audiences. So in creating Art Bridges and she created a collection of art that is their own that they loan out to people. And when they loan the artwork to you, they also give you an opportunity to apply for a grant for programming money related to doing programs connected to that artwork.
Oh,
And we've been doing
fantastic.
this since day one. So like we are an early adopter. And if you talk to anybody at Art Bridge, it's like, oh yeah, no, we love the Mattatuck Museum. They're exactly what we're looking for. A museum you've never heard of that has a really large constituency that is exactly who we want to get this artwork in
Mm.
front of. So every time they create a program, so that was the first program. Then they have like the art loan program where we were a part of a cohort with the MFA Boston for 3 years where they loan collection works to us directly to create exhibitions at the museum. We did that in partnership with the Fenimore Art Museum, the Munson Williams Proctor's Institute, and the Springfield Museum. So the four of us worked together for 5 years with the MFA Boston in that cohort program.
Mm.
They've created a collection loan program where this Gordon Parks exhibition is a part of that. They work with an institution to mount an exhibition and then tour it to several different locations. So we are one of 4 institutions in the country that are getting this Gordon Parks exhibition, which is amazing.
Fabulous.
Yeah, it's
Oh.
fantastic. It's such a great show. And then the other program they have is a program where they're literally getting museums to take groupings of artwork and bring them to a small institution like ours and give them to us for 12 to 18 months. And so the first museum we worked with in that program last year was the Los Angeles County Art Museum. And so LACMA loaned us, I think it was 19 works by Chicano artists and then 6 other additional works that were by artists from Los Angeles. And they were here for a year. We did 4 exhibitions and it was kind of amazing. This year we have 3 works from the Cleveland Museum by George O'Keeffe, 3 paintings on loan for a year. And we've been doing smaller exhibitions in conversation with works from our collection and those 3 works from the George O'Keeffe Museum. But in March, we'll be opening an exhibition that our chief curator, Keffy Feldman, has organized called Modern Women, Georgia O'Keeffe and Kay Sage.
Mm.
And so Kay Sage may not be known to a lot of your listeners out there, but she's probably the preeminent surrealist American woman artist of the whole entire world of surrealist art. She and her husband, Yves Tanguy, came here during the Second World War to visit their friend, Alexander Calder, who was making his amazing stabiles just here in the city of Waterbury, although he lived in Roxbury. And they fell in love with the neighborhood and bought a house in Woodbury. And unfortunately, Yves died a few years later. Kay was brokenhearted, but she continued to be connected to the Mattatuck Museum through her relationship to a guy named John Monaghan, who was the president of our board, a mayor of the city of Waterbury, a local state
Mm.
representative, and eventually congressman of the state of Connecticut.
Wow.
And so it was a multi-year relationship between Kay Sage and the museum. And at the time of her death, Pierre Matisse was still her gallery representative for her work and Eve's work, and he and John Monaghan worked place works in museums all over the country, and they sent off amazing works that she hand selected of Eve's and of her own to great institutions, MoMA, SF MoMA,
Mm.
MFA Boston. Most of the institutions at that time were really grateful for the Eve Tungy painting and declined the Case Sage painting because they didn't really know who she was. That was great for us because in the will, it said at the end, anything that was left over would go to an institution that collects art. And John Monaghan, being the president of our board, meant us. And so we are the
Wow.
largest repository in the world of works by Kay Sage. We have over 80 paintings by her, some of them her earliest works from when she was a teenage girl living in Italy, to some of her assemblage that she was working on the day that she died. So it's a really broad swath of work. And we also received all of their papers, their archives, and personal collections. So we have works by other artists from that same generation that were collected by Eve and Kay that have come into our collection as well. So this exhibition that we're working on right now will utilize those three key paintings from the Cleveland Museum by George O'Keeffe, and it's enhanced by loans from all over New England, including personal objects of George O'Keeffe's that eventually made their way to the Yale Art Museum.
Mm.
In conversation with our paintings and our papers and our ephemera and personal objects of Kay Sage. So it's going to be a kind of amazing exhibition that will be up through most of the summer here at the museum and really give us an opportunity, thanks to Art Bridges and the Cleveland Museum of Art, to really tell a story that's not just the George O'Keeffe story that people are interested in seeing everywhere in the world, but really bringing it into that time period and the experience of a woman working in that man's world that was happening in the 20th century in America, in both of the worlds that they were struggling to find their own voice and to create their own body of work. So it should be a really exciting exhibition, and
Most
grateful to
definitely. Most
Art Bridges for making
definitely.
it all possible.
Fascinating to hear about the collaboration between the wide range of museums and the opportunities it provides institutions like your own, the Mattatuck Museum. In the minute or so we have left, I know you've done a wonderful job providing this terrific overview. There's so much more to find out about. And in the credits, we'll have contact information for visitors to pursue that. Just a few reflections of the past 13 years from when you first came to where the museum is now.
So the best number to give you is when I arrived, I was one of 9 people who worked here. That was full and part-time staff. Several of those 9 were part-time staff. And then that first year we did 28 changing exhibitions with 9 people.
Wow.
I know,
It's
crazy. I was much younger than Jay.
it's unbelievable. Well, you haven't slowed down
We
much,
haven't
I don't
really slowed
think.
down that much. We're now down to like 18 to 20 a year, but our staff has grown to 22 full and part-time people. So we're actually museum-sized staff. And in 2021, we opened basically a new wing to the institution. We started in 2017. Unfortunately, the pandemic happened in the middle of all that, but that was kind of good for us because we had already bought everything.
Mm.
Construction was happening during the pandemic. So I got to go to work every day, unlike many people. And we opened this new amazing building in 2021. And so we have like a new face. The old museum was lovely, but it was like a solid brick wall against the street. And it really said to people, like, stay out unless you're supposed to be here. And now it's floor to ceiling glass, 3 stories of it. You can see into every single floor. When you're on those different floors and you're looking out, you can see how beautiful the city of Waterbury is. It's a city of amazing architecture, beautiful people. And so now there's this transparency, and it's something I've been dreaming of for 13 years, and to actually experience it is kind of amazing. And I would say that although, the staff changes and people grow, I think my favorite thing about my 13 years here is that we've launched so many people's careers. We're a
Mm.
small museum that not many people have heard about in a major city that most people don't go to unless they have to. So getting people to work here is challenging. And, we've started a lot of people on a career path because they didn't know what they wanted to do, and we needed somebody to do that job. And every single person who comes here, Jay, knows how to hang art. So if nothing else, they can go and be a professional art hanger anywhere in the state of Connecticut. But we've launched the careers of at least 30 people. They've either gone on
Wow.
to work in other museums, they've gone on to graduate programs and are now beginning to work at museums. And I feel like that is like the legacy of me and this institution that I'd never planned on.
Yeah,
But
fabulous,
like
fabulous.
sending them
Well,
out there in
Bob,
the world, it's great.
Unfortunately, we have to wrap up because of time. Thank you so much again for taking the time to be here, bringing us up to speed on all the Mattatuck Museum has to offer. Definitely look forward to visiting in the near future and continued success with future endeavors.
Thank you, Jay. I appreciate it.
I also want to thank those of you watching for joining us and hope you'll be able to tune in next time.